Welcome to Distorted Opinions. I'm Kayla, and I'm joined by Matt and Ted as always. And this week, we thought we would take a slightly different path. And Ted and I were actually talking recently about some bands that he's been listening to that are international bands. And I think we've got a pretty good list for this week of groups that I don't think our audience is probably going to have heard of. I'd be really surprised, to be honest. In fact, before we started the show, Matt wanted to make sure the three of us hadn't picked the same bands, and I'd have been totally stunned if that had happened.
If you had picked the bands that I have for today, I would be shocked because they're still fairly new to me, and
Sure.
I don't think that. How would you know?
Yeah,
It's happened. It's
No, that's
happened
true.
where we all started a show and we're all like, oh,
true.
we have the
But
same
I think
thing.
this one probably would have been pretty tough because there's a lot of. I mean, I know I went for probably newer, a little bit more obscure. Well, not necessarily newer. I can't say that because one of those bands is definitely not new, but bands that people here in the US probably have not heard of. And I know Ted's got some pretty interesting groups on his list. So why don't we go ahead and dive right in with Ted's bands that he's picked out for this episode?
Sure. So, I mean, being a metalhead and having metal be a fairly underground niche genre in general, there's lots of bands that are out in the world, literally, that you can only discover on YouTube or, other avenues where you find new music. And over the years of being a metalhead, there's certainly plenty of famous ones. Obviously, everyone knows Rammstein from Germany,
Sure.
and a bunch of Norwegian death metal, black metal bands from, all those classic, if you will, genres and areas of the world where that music is coming from. But I wanted to focus in on a couple of bands today that are under the radar, I feel like, for the most part. Some of them aren't, honestly. There's two that are, one from Mongolia and one from New Zealand, that have millions of YouTube hits. But I recently came across them, and it's probably not in the everyday listening habits of most people, but wanted to at least talk about those. But the first one I wanted to mention is actually from Germany. And no, it's not Rammstein. The band is called Varg, V-A-R-G. That band was formed in 2005. I discovered one of their music videos on the Napalm Records YouTube channel, and I was really blown away. They have really good groove, good metal, groove metal style. They do black and red face paint. So it's almost corpse paint-ish in the black metal sense, but red. And
So a little bit of Braveheart.
Braveheart had
with
more
black
blue.
and red.
No, but I wound up picking up one of their albums, their 2016 album Das Ende aller Lügen, which is one of the Napalm records that they released. And it's a great album, A. The interesting part about it is that it's a two-part album. It's the same set of songs, one completely in German, the other half completely in English, but it's the same songs, and they translate it. And what's interesting is that the German rendition of that album is far better, and because I think those words it was originally written to be in German, so the words rhyme better, and so you kind of lose some of that with the English version. But just the fact that they're putting out the same record, but just English and German together on a single album is pretty interesting. Really impressive stuff, really good music. So I wanted to bring up Varg as first pick for this week.
I don't think I've ever can recall an album that has two translations. So that's really interesting to hear.
And it's the full
That's
album.
actually pretty unique
It's
too.
like
Full
10,
album, yeah.
10 tracks.
So you may hear of like singles being translated, but a whole album. I mean, that's wow.
Right.
I'll have to check this out.
Yeah, it's it's right up my alley for metal. It's nice and loud and aggressive, and but it's really really well done. So definitely shout out to Varg for that. The next band I wanted to mention is from Mongolia, and if you're in the metal scene, maybe you've heard of them. They're called The Who, not The Who, The Who, H-U. And
Not to be confused with the British invasion band, The Who.
correct. Yes, completely different. And if you see a picture of them, they look their instruments alone are not even close to what the Who actually uses. So the Who, in this Mongolian band, is a folk rock band that was formed in 2016. They use traditional instruments for their music. So they use a Morin kur, which is a horsehead fiddle. They have Tov Shur. I'm absolutely butchering. Actually, maybe you know what? I'm making the greatest translation of Mongolian right now. Tov Shur is a 3-string lute. They have a sur, which is a Mongolian flute, and then they have a harp as well. So they use a lot of traditional folk instruments, and it's very interesting. It's very cool, very different. And they use, for lyrics, they use old Mongolian war cries and poetry as part of their lyrics. Some fun facts. They released their first album in 2019. And also that 2 months later, the band was awarded the highest state award for Mongolia, the Order of Genghis Khan, for promoting Mongolian culture around the world. So that is, they've been recognized by the government for that album, and they are talking about a second album this year. And Kayla, this is a fun fact for you, but in December, the band released a cover of Sad But True from Metallica.
Interesting.
I like that.
So, and I'm curious to know with the instruments that they use, how that translates, because
so am I.
The instruments are crazy looking. Like they're traditional folk music instruments, but they're black with like blue flames, and there's actual horse head crafted on the headstock, and they use bows for their different stringed instruments. It's very chant oriented type of music. It's really, really cool, but it's, I don't know, if you can play an instrument heavy for I don't know, you play an acoustic guitar heavy, you can play these instruments heavy, it comes across as heavy. So it's definitely has that rock end, even though it's not, it's more folk. It's very cool. It's a really neat band. Highly recommend checking them out. If not, just look at their instruments, because they're quite different than your average guitar.
That'd be interesting if the Who did a cover of the Who song "Who Are You?"
Who are
You know,
Are you? Do, 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 do.
I don't. That would be really interesting.
The funny thing is, when you said before we started the show that the Who was on your list, it didn't even register with me. I was just like, oh, okay, he's doing the Who, like, you know, exactly like all the CSI themes.
No.
And then when you said the Who HU, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that definitely makes more sense, because I'm also pretty sure the Who,
not the Who that you're thinking. It's a different Who, the Mongolian Who.
Yes, but I do think it's really awesome that their government has awarded them for their music. I think that's a really cool thing. And as a band that's maybe not a traditional metal band, but the fact that they're playing metal type music on these instruments, I mean, how often do you hear of a government recognizing a metal band for anything?
Just for the record, the song that was recommended to me has 74 million views.
Wow.
So it's not necessarily underground in the sense of underground. So
okay.
But the music video is awesome, by the way, because they're like on this like plateau overlooking like this vast space, and it's just like flyby helicopters. It's very cinematic. It's very well done. So
sounds a little like the Metallica video that I was talking about a couple of episodes ago. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool.
So that's my second band. And the third one I want to talk about is from New Zealand. The band is called Alien Weaponry, and I've been under a rock. I don't know how I missed this band. They've been around for 11 years already, and they just showed up in my queue a month ago.
Wow.
Where have I been? This band is awesome. It is a 3-piece metal band, groove metal. from New Zealand, as mentioned, and Auckland. They were most noted for their songs using the Maori indigenous people language. All of the band members are of Maori descent, which is also part of the tie for the cultural references they use. And a lot of those noted songs are about the clash of the colonization of New Zealand with the indigenous people and the struggles that occurred in the 1800s. But the band really, they look like I mean, they've been around for 11 years, but one of their videos that I watch, it just looks like I don't know. They look like they're 19. They look like just kids, but it's so cool. The Maori language is very interesting. It's obviously Pacific Islandish style of language, and it's really, really neat to put that with metal music at the same time. So the band has 8 EPs, 1 full-length album, which came out in 2018, and the band was received a couple of grants from, I'm not sure, either the government of New Zealand for completing and recording music videos for some of their songs, which is really nuts. You get paid 10 grand to make a music video.
Wow.
All right, do it twice. So that was pretty neat. They were named in 2016 by UK Metal Hammer magazine as one of New Zealand's top 10 metal acts. Easy to go without saying. One of their videos that I find pretty notable, Kai Tangata, is really powerful. Video's been out for 2 years. They have 10 million views on that. And it's really interesting because they use their current tribe members in the video, and they perform traditional dance, or war dance, if you will, to kind of describe some of the turmoil and the clash in that particular song in the music video as well. It's really cool. Very catchy. Ugh, love it. Anyway, rambled enough. Those are my 3 picks for this week. I probably keep on talking. So with that, I'll turn over to Kayla because I referenced Metallica. I feel like you didn't pick Metallica for the
No.
We didn't. We did all non-US bands.
That's right. Yeah, and I also, none of my bands that I'm aware of have, well, actually I can't say that. I was going to say have not covered Metallica, but there is a tie in there, and I'll get to that momentarily. Before I get into my bands, I did want to just quickly talk about, and I think I've mentioned this on a couple of shows previously, but there's a site, or you can also download it as an app, that I've been visiting quite a bit recently, called Radio Garden, and it's run by a Dutch nonprofit. And if you've missed the episodes where I've talked about this, basically what it is this nonprofit took a Google Earth view and placed green dots in all the places around the world where you can listen to radio stations online. So you can spin around to somewhere in the Middle East and click on a green dot and listen live to a station that's playing music in the Middle East. And
for the record, this is not a sponsor.
No, they're not a sponsor. And I'm not sure that they would be, because they're nonprofit. So I'm not even going to say contact us if you'd like to be a sponsor. But but I have been telling a lot of people that I know love music about this, because when I discovered it, it was like, wow, this is really cool. In fact, I sent it to a couple of coworkers, and then we proceeded to, for like an hour, message each other back and forth about these different stations we were listening to. And, I can't really speak to specific artists that I've heard listening to stations on this app, because they don't necessarily say who the artists are. And even if they did, a lot of the stations I've been listening to are in parts of the world where I don't speak the language, so I would not have a clue what they're saying. And SoundHound won't necessarily recognize the songs, because if it's not in their database, then it just doesn't know what the song is. So a lot of times I'm not even really sure what it is that I'm listening to. I just know that it's really cool ethnic music from someplace far, far away from where I am right now. So it was kind of funny, because one of the exchanges between myself and one of my coworkers was that he had picked a station in Germany that was playing I thought he
Rammstein.
said
No, I'm just kidding.
no. No, that would have been kind of surprising. That probably actually would have been more acceptable to me than the fact that he said they were playing, I think it was like Britney Spears followed by Michael Jackson, but there was heavy German commentary in between it by the DJ. So it's like music that you would hear here, but there was commentary in another language in between the songs. So I'm like, but amazingly enough, that happens a lot. Like I'll click on a station, be like, ooh, I wonder what they're playing in this country, expecting to hear something that's kind of more native to that region. And it's something that you would definitely hear here in the U.S. Like it's
You're
a
disappointed
U.S.
and I'm going
artist.
somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm like, literally, I do. I'm like, well, I'm going to go find another station because I could listen to this here and I don't want to listen to this particular song. So, and then I guess over in Russia, he clicked a couple stations there and there was a lot of like, techno house trance type music because I guess that's really popular in Russia. So, but it's a really cool app. I've been listening in particular to a number of stations in Africa, India, and the Middle East. And there's one station I've been listening to in the Middle East that it's interesting because you'll hear a lot of music that you would expect to hear in that region, but then occasionally there's some bluesy jazz type song that plays that I'm like, well, this is really unexpected considering all of the other songs that I've heard on this station before. So, it's just, again, not a sponsor, but it's a really cool app. If you're somebody who enjoys listening to music from other areas of the world, it's free. It's really easy to just click. Like I could be there all day just clicking on different green dots and listening to stations elsewhere and finding stuff that I like in other regions. So if you haven't checked it out, I would definitely recommend doing so. But on a more specific note of bands, and this is the first band I'm going to talk about is one that ties in a little bit, Ted, to what you were talking about with the Mongolian cover of Metallica. So this band, it's called Her Last Sight, and they're based out of Israel. And I actually discovered them, I think it was I can't remember if it was our 2020 wrap-up episode where I talked about artists that I had discovered on Instagram that were largely guitar players doing covers of Metallica and some other bands. And I talked briefly about, and I hope I'm not going to butcher his name, but Ofek Asulin, who
right
I'm
to
following
me. Ofek
on
Asulin.
Instagram. So he plays guitar and he does a lot of Metallica covers and he does a lot of My Bloody Valentine covers and amazing guitar player. And at some point he started posting about his band, Her Last Sight, how they were going to be releasing an album shortly and they had put out a couple of music videos. And so I went over and I checked those out and these guys are really, really awesome. Ted, I think they'd probably be kind of up your alley. I'm going to try to list the other band members' names, and I'm probably going to butcher their names too. So if any of those guys happen to be listening to this, I apologize in advance.
Well, let's remind you that this episode is an international music episode.
Right.
So it's going to be expected that we may have some slight mispronunciations that are obviously not
I don't know what you're talking about. I completely nailed the Mongolian pronunciation. Just saying.
Yeah, Ted was on his A game. Me, probably not so much.
Practice. No, I didn't practice mine, so we'll work it.
Yeah, I didn't either. Yeah. So I'm going to attempt to pronounce the names of these guys. It's Shay Madar, Alan Lifshitz, Nir Schwartz, and Ron Maya, as well as obviously Ofik on guitar. And these guys are a metalcore band. I would say they
sounded like a new Rob Zombie album.
I mean, it could be. That may be the next one.
What's that? The names?
Yeah, I mean, how ridiculous Rob Zombie titles strings together a bunch of words.
Hey, I want to cut if he uses that as the title of his album.
I think the band wants their names.
Yeah, seriously, they should get they get a bigger cut than I do.
On the album.
I get a cut for suggesting it. So yes,
look at our ratings.
It does.
We went up.
yeah. No, it does. It does sound a little bit when you say all the names together. It does sound a little bit like a Rob Zombie album. But these guys do not sound like Rob Zombie, but I do think they sound a little bit like Of Mice and Men, Asking
Okay.
Alexandria, Bullet for My Valentine. They're a heavy band, but one of the things I like about them is that they're not like their music. There's a lot of melody to it. They have some very melodic guitar parts. It's not like they just drop tune their guitars and play heavy power chords for an entire song. There's a lot happening in their songs. They just released their first album, Mirrors, which came out this past March 2021. And like I said, they've released a number of music videos over on YouTube, so you can also head over there and look for them. But they're also on Spotify if you want to listen to any of their stuff. As far as their guitar, like I said, there's a lot of melodic guitar. There's some of the songs have some very Zakk Wylde-esque pinch harmonics to them, particularly Dead and Cold. There's a lot of that in that particular song. But they're a really cool band. I listen to, death metal, metalcore stuff, but not a ton. That's not quite my genre, but these guys, I'm really liking these guys. So definitely give them a listen if you haven't checked them out. Like I said, they're from Israel. And then the second band and the final group that's on my list of notes for today is a group called the Tragically Hip, or as they're known, the Hip in Canada.
The who?
And
The Hip.
Believe it or not.
Not to be confused with the British band Who.
The who? The Hip?
The Hip.
The who?
Hip hop, the hippity hippity hip hip hop.
That's a totally different genre. Believe me. So these guys actually, believe it or not, I discovered through figure skating. And for those of you who maybe don't know this, yes, I saw that look, Ted.
Yeah. What?
I am a huge fan of figure skating. I have, since I was a kid, so I never skated a rink. I wasn't part of a skating club or anything.
Which is
but
why I didn't think that was such a fascination.
Well, yeah. So, but I had a pond in my backyard and I would skate on my pond all the time in the winter. And but this was before my days of guitar. I always envisioned myself as being like the next Christy Yamaguchi or the next Nancy Kerrigan. I used to have posters of those two ladies hanging on my wall as a kid. Used to love watching figure skating. Got into guitar, got into metal, kind of like, okay, figure skating is not a cool thing.
Just busted into your bedroom and said, "You're going to this dark side."
I know. When we started
Give me
hanging
fuel,
out,
give me fire, give me
only
power,
had
China
Metallica posters.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Well,
I
and
missed
we're talking.
that phase,
we're talking
was suppressed,
elementary
apparently.
school.
Yeah.
We're talking elementary school. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not afraid to admit it, but I've recently revisited my love for watching figure skating. And I remember actually the 2018 Olympics, my dad and I watched the figure skating competitions together, and that's when I discovered a pair of Canadian ice dancers, Tessa Virtue and Scott Moyer, who are now they're two of my all-time favorite of figure skaters. But they did, in their exhibition performance post winning the gold medal at the Olympics in 2018, they did a performance to the Hip, or the Tragically Hip's long time running, because sadly, the singer Gord Downie in 2015 was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer, and the band did a farewell tour in 2016. It was in support of their 13th studio album. These guys have been around since 1987, and I had not heard of them, which is kind of surprising because I know of I know about a lot of things Canadian for some reason. It's just there's a lot of bands I listen to, a lot of shows that I like that are Canadian. It's
Nickelback?
Somehow I didn't know about these guys. What's that?
It's not Nickelback.
Oh God, no. Okay. Yeah, no, it's not Nickelback. But one of my all-time favorite guitar players, Dave Martone, is Canadian. So these guys have been around for a long time, and I'd never heard of them. But their singer. They did a farewell tour for their 13th and final studio album, and Gord ended up passing away October 17th, 2017. So just a short while after they wrapped up that tour. And so Tessa and Scott, as a tribute to him, did their exhibition performance to Long Time Running, which is one of the Tragically Hip songs. And that's the first time I'd actually heard them. And then I've listened to more of their stuff since then, and I really enjoy their music. They actually, to me, sound a lot like REM. And in fact, I thought it was REM the first time I heard them, and then I discovered that it wasn't REM. But they have, some songs that are a little heavier, more rock styled. And then there's others that are a bit more folk sounding, like Wheat Kings is definitely very different from Long Time Running and some of the other songs that they have. They consisted of, it was five members from Kingston, Ontario. They had Rob Baker on guitar, Gord Downey on vocals and guitar, Johnny Fay on drums, Paul Langlois on guitar, and Gord Sinclair on bass. And interestingly, they had two guys named Gord in the band, which I was like, oh, what are the odds? But they apparently had several albums worth of unreleased material that, and I don't know what the extent was, but apparently in 2019 there was a massive fire at Universal Studios, and a number of artists lost the master tapes of, I think, probably both released music as well as unreleased tracks that they had recorded. And I guess the Tragically Hip were among the artists that lost a lot of their master recordings of songs. And so I don't know to what extent they lost all of that stuff with Gord Downey that they had recorded before his passing. And that's really unfortunate that happened. And I guess there was a number of artists that sued Universal for the fact that they didn't have all of that stuff properly backed up in other places, and that they didn't get a cut of the insurance payout for the fact that stuff was lost. Like, I guess Universal just pocketed all that. Yeah, so it was that was like a whole other rabbit hole I went down when researching the Tragically Hip for these notes. It was like, ooh,
well, you know who those recording studios hire, right?
Here we go. Speaking of rabbit holes,
doing
Matt's
the Tom Brady look.
People.
Yeah, Matt loves A&R reps. In case you haven't listened to some of the previous episodes where he's
I'm
talked
being very
about
facetious when I say it's his favorite people.
Oh,
no comment.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm still sensitive to the Top Gun pushback, but we're not going to talk about that. So A&R reps, yeah. No. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah, we're hitting all the buttons with Matt today on this particular episode. The Top Gun conversation was prior to the episode, but we got him riled up with that, and then now we're gonna get him riled up with the A&R reps pocketing the insurance money from a major fire that resulted in a number of artists losing their only recordings of who knows how many songs. So
hey, listen, you can't fix stupid.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
But
You'd think they'd been smarter than that. I mean, I work for a small-time public access station, and I know the importance of backing up your productions and stuff to more than one place, specifically for the event of a disaster like a fire or a flood or any number of things that could happen. You don't want all of that stuff in one place. You lose it and that's it. So yeah, I was kind of blown away when I read that story. And then I was even more blown away when I found out that they didn't pay any of the artists any of the insurance money that they got for losing that material in the fire. So yeah, all that to say, the Tragically Hip lost some unknown amount, except for probably other than to them, of their material in that fire. But between 1996 and 2006, these guys were the best-selling Canadian band in Canada and the fourth best-selling Canadian artist overall in Canada, which is a pretty big deal. Like I said, they did 13 studio albums between 1987 and their final album in 2016. But just a really great band. I've been enjoying listening to their music, and I would highly recommend giving them a listen. And they are my final band on my list. So with that, I'm sure maybe Matt's got some more rants about A&R reps that he'd like to get into, but
no,
maybe another show.
I'll save my time for another show.
Yeah, we'll make a note in the spreadsheet for a future topic, A&R reps.
I'm still waiting for that A&R rep that wants to be a guest on our show. It'll just be a one-on-one.
Oh boy,
I would
we
love
might
that.
not be able to air that episode.
Unedited. No bleeps, no
Director's
uncensored.
cut.
Oh boy.
DODC.
Oh boy.
Well, we're talking about international bands. We're talking about international music. We're talking about international artists. It's great. If there's anything I'm a particular fan of, is that there's definitely a different essence to music that is outside of our United States and whatnot. And I have a very, very high appreciation for it. Some of these bands that, I have two bands on my list and one I'll be talking about. One of them's definitely very, very known. And the other one is, they were fairly known, especially for the early 2000s, up until probably about maybe 2014, 2017, until they broke up. But if there's one thing that I was a big fan of growing up, especially in middle school and high school years, is that, I didn't watch sports. I could care less for the news. There was only one thing I loved, and that was music videos. All right. We have MTV, we have MTV2, we have VH1, we had Fuse, we had MTV Rock, we had all those types of music. I mean, even Music Choice is still on today, but even listening to those, and it would be on constant. And a majority of my playlist is all because of those channels that, I've built up my list to go ahead and listen to on an everyday basis, some on repeat, and some to go ahead and really analyze, to go ahead and practice on, playing guitar, playing different covers and whatnot. But there's one band that came out that sparked my curiosity as far as, it's a different genre, never really heard of it. So, but there's a band called, oh my gosh, there we go. Okay, just get my notes here. Okay, His Infernal Majesty. Okay, everyone may know of them as the band Him.
Yeah.
And I came across him one night, again, just playing guitar, and this single came up, Wings of a Butterfly, and I was just blown away by it.
Love that song.
One of the aspects that I was blown away by it is that also during that time too, I was getting into, a lot more acoustic, a lot more folky type of music, a little bit of emo going in there, whatnot, the Dashboard's Confessionals of the world, all that stuff. So Him came out, and it was almost like, if I could probably paint a picture, it was like Dashboard Confessional on, meets black metal, and mixing them together. That's the only thing I can think of. And it confused me for a minute, because I was like, wait a minute, how does this even make sense? When I'm thinking of so I did my research, Him, they're from Helsinki, Finland. They are a gothic rock, gothic metal band. They're formed in 1991. They did break up in 93, but they reformed back in 95 until they recently broke up in 2017.
I didn't realize they started in 91.
Yeah. I didn't even know that.
We discovered them 2000 something.
Yeah, it was like 2000, 2001.
Yeah.
And whatnot until they had 8 albums. I think when they started becoming known to US was when they released their album Razorblade Romance in 2000, in which that was
it. Yep. Like 2000 something. Yeah,
yep.
It
would have been on our list, and then followed up by that was Deep Shadows and Brilliant Highlights in 2001. But as I was mentioning, the band is known for themes of love and metal, and when you mix those types of elements, you get songs like Wings of a Butterfly. For those that are also fans of a comedy show, Jackass, there's one of the members, Bam Margera, is a very, very close friend of and I'm probably going to pronounce his name wrong, Ville Valo, who's the lead singer of the band Him. They're close friends, and he invented what's called the heartogram. So basically, it's a heart and a pentagram mixed together. And he is quoted that the heartogram was basically pretty much like a yin and a yang, a love and a hate, a happy and a sad. It's pretty much, a mixture of how can we go ahead and collaborate two elements and put them together. And that's where Him came about. So when you're listening to Him, even though they are classified as a gothic rock, because when we're thinking gothic rock, we're thinking about, like heavy metal, dark metal, black metal type of all aspects. But when you're listening to Him, it's completely opposite. His lyrics are of love and of almost like take for instance, he's and I'll talk about this in my song of the week and whatnot, but his lyrics are definitely known for like love, but also almost like a sacrificial love. Like basically like I'll give my life for you, or hey, let's do this together.
Very emo, if you will.
Oh, very, very emo and whatnot. But the lyrics have dark tones to them. So it's weird because again, how do you analyze, oh, this is gothic metal? Okay, I mean, definitely suitable for hot topics of the world. And
yeah.
And I mean, when you listen to him, it's almost like, ooh, this is okay. I guess I could be a metalhead, but then have a soft heart at the same time. So if we were again go ahead and try to picture this, it's almost like the Grim Reaper trying to have a latte at a Starbucks. It's kind of a little same. A little.
I
similar.
live for Matt's like analogies. I really do.
I mean, I try, but one. So obviously, back then, I listened to this album. I listened to Razor Blade Romance. I think it's a phenomenal album. And it wasn't until I found out that he did a cover. They did a cover of Chris Isaak's Wicked Game. Highly, highly recommend.
Yes, that is such an awesome cover.
It's an amazing cover. Not only is the original. Now, listen, I'm a stickler for like, if you're gonna do a cover of something, you better be kick ass at it, because especially if it's a bomb type of song that doesn't even need covering or anything like that, like don't even change anything of it. Just keep it as is, but add different vocals to it. That's just my personal preference. But Him did a phenomenal cover of Chris Isaak's Wicked Game. Highly, highly recommend it and whatnot. So Him, definitely one of those bands, again, from Finland. Didn't really know them until, came across, like an MTV tour of Fuse and happened to see Wings of a Butterfly and whatnot. But some of the band members is Ville Valo, Mikko Midge, Pananen, Mikko Linde Lindstrom, Jane Burton, Pertinen, and Mika Gaslipstick Kirpinian and whatnot. So again, I probably butchered those pronunciations because they're Finnish probably and whatnot, but I apologize in advance. But hey, it's all about the thought process behind it.
Finnish or Norwegian, very different places.
Yep. Didn't know. So hey, I'm a musician guy, not English. Hey, what can we say? That's what makes it happen. But so kind of continue on with Him. Him's actually no longer together. They did break up in 2017. Their last show was a farewell show called the Bang and Whimper 2017 farewell show. And their last album what happened to be in 2013 called Tears on Tape. I didn't get a chance to listen to this album or whatnot, but I have listened to Greatest Love Songs Volume 666, which was released in 97. Another great album. Razor Blade Romance, which we just spoke of. Deep Shadows and Brilliant Highlights 2001, Love Metal 2003, Dark Light 2005, Venus Doom 2017, which is actually a badass name. I like that, Venus Doom. It's almost
Sounds
like a
another
DLC.
Rob Zombie portion of an album that he should be writing next.
It could be, or it could be a DLC to the game Doom. Venus Doom.
That's true.
And then there's Screamworks, Love and Theory of Practice, 2010, and then finally Tears on Tape. But that's him. So if you haven't heard of him before, or also known as his Infernal Majesty, definitely check him out.
I listened to them a little bit when, early 2000s, and then it just wasn't my style.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be your style.
I mean, I'm willing to go back and give it another listen, 20 years later, and, give it another shot. But, it might be nostalgic if I remember any of the songs, if anything. But
it's definitely catchy. I mean, if anything, Wings of a Butterfly is definitely a catchy tune.
That's literally the first thing that comes up on YouTube.
But definitely highly recommend. I mean, they definitely have power chord progressions in the song as well. But I think what's known for them is their tunes are just catchy, and I think that's what really made it be known to their music. That hey, we could be dark but lovey-dovey at the same time. I don't know. It's something. But they happen to be on my list.
Nice.
So that's him. The second one, the second band I'm going to talk about, we've all heard of it. Dun, 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 dun. That's right, baby. Deep Purple, not Deep Violet, Deep Purple. And they're from Hertfordshire, England. So Deep Purple, they're still around. Let me tell you this.
They're still around.
They are still classified to this day as hard rock and heavy metal and prog rock, which is unique because when you think about hard rock and heavy metal, even prog, prog is, you have Tool. So to have Deep Purple and Tool in the same category, it's pretty unique. So the only thing I can think of, and this is my theory, is that they're classified as hard rock, heavy metal, and prog for back then because it wasn't really known.
Right.
For the time frame, but why change their genres now? Who knows?
I mean, bands evolve anyway, but
exactly.
Well, that's like Jethro Tull getting the best heavy metal song up against Metallica. I believe that was the year they were up in the running for one. I mean,
right.
Jethro Tull, heavy metal.
Yeah, it's questionable. It's questionable.
So yeah, I feel like that's kind of similar.
I mean, it could be the leadership of these records that like these record companies that
no.
Here
right
we
go.
Don't
get started.
I don't know. You're almost there. But Deep Purple. Oh yeah, let's get back. I could already see jumping ship going on to a whole nother episode.
Yes.
But Deep Purple, songs like Smoke on the Water,
which is
Highway
probably the most covered entry musician song ever played. Honestly, I think it was one of the first songs I ever learned on guitar.
And I both.
We play it just because it's relatively easy and it's a good groove warm up type of song for us when we were able to play. Definitely that song is just everywhere. It's on put them on the map.
And just like what you said, it's definitely a great warm up song. Ted, I don't know how many times we played in the band.
We played it at like pep rallies and when we were in a band in high school, and we played it a bit.
And the best thing is that this is a song that never gets old, but it's also one of those songs that if you play it too much, it might get up there with Stairway to Heaven. So not recommending that when you go into a guitar center that you play Smoke on the Water because you might get spoken to. But Smoke on the Water, Highway
Don't
Star.
play that here.
Yeah.
Get out. And the song Hush. Hush, I feel, is like one of those songs that is a little underrated. It's almost kind of like the Stepchild. But this is my theory again. Hush and Smoke on the Water, two different timelines. Hush came out, and I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone's listening, I want to say Hush came out in 1968. Okay. And then Smoke on the Water came out in 1973, 72. Okay. two different eras of time frames where Hush was still in that psychedelic, make love not war type of music genre back then, while Smoke on the Water is okay. We jumped ship on that one. We're gonna go ahead and try experimenting with not letting disco get into our, into the popularity of our tunes and whatnot. So while we had Deep Purple, we also had Black Sabbath around that time. We had Led Zeppelin at that time. So they all fell into that category of the hard rock, heavy metal, prog type of vibes and whatnot, which that's what I'm thinking as my theory. Because when you're thinking of Hush, again, it's ending that psychedelic era. You could still kind of get those 60 vibes of, tunes. You could easily tell when you're listening to Hush as well that it's slowly transitioning into a different type of a sound. It's still got those, again, 60 vibes, but you could easily tell that the band is going into a different genre or whatnot. But, Deep Purple, I could probably mention all the members of Deep Purple, but we're not going to get there. It's kind of on the same lines as Lynyrd Skynyrd. But there's one person I will mention with Deep Purple, and that's David Coverdale. If you don't know who David Coverdale is, he is the frontman for the band Whitesnake. So when you're thinking of Deep Purple and you're thinking of Smoke on the Water, and then you're thinking of the hair metal, cross-dressing type of, power ballads back in the 80s of This Is Love, The Hair.
Aquanet.
You have those. You have that. So David Coverdale, I mean, it's great. It's awesome.
Yeah. Talking about two very different sounds too. 100%. Deep Purple and Whitesnake.
Two,
not even close.
Yeah.
Apples and oranges. That's exactly what it is. But hey, they managed to get something out of it and whatnot. So Deep Purple was ranked by VH1 as the top 100 greatest artists of hard rock. Yes, I'm saying hard rock, not just rock. Hard rock. Which makes sense. They have 21 albums from 1968 till a just released one as of last year called Whoosh in 2020.
It's crazy they're still making albums.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Still make them one up, but when you Wikipedia their ass, they have a bunch of people. New lineups.
Wow.
And I'm trying to see, but yeah. But one thing I will categorize is that, when they did some touring, some names came up. Didn't know this until literally today, but Joe Satriani was a touring member for Deep Purple back in 93 and in 94.
Wow.
I had no idea.
Huh. I didn't know that
So
either.
who would have thought that Joe Satriani was at one point playing with Deep Purple back then?
I mean, if you need a qualified guitar player to go on tour with, I would imagine he would be high up on the list. Oh, you want to go on tour with us? Great. Come on, bring your
down.
guitar. We'll even supply the amps for you.
Price is right.
Come on down.
It's pretty unique to see that, bands that still nowadays still get together, they have some transitioning of members, but they still collaborate and they still get together with still maintaining the liveliness of bands today. That 21 albums from 1968 till the last album 2020. I mean, when we get to 2028, okay, and if this band is still alive, we're literally talking over a half century.
I was going to say, what are you talking about?
Listen,
that's not math.
I'm a musician.
Rolling Stones, maybe.
Over a half a century.
Yeah, Stones is going to have, but still. Yeah. I mean, specific to Deep Purple, though. I mean, 50 years. It's
it's absolutely nuts.
But that does kind of. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's if Deep Purple is still around by 2028, it's literally going to be 60 years of albums. It's absolutely nuts. And what's great about it what's great about it is that not only is it a way of learning bands how they grow, but let's talk about like get even deeper. We could even transition to thinking about the timelines of music back then. You could listen, it's easy to go ahead and just look at a documentary of like, oh, this was the 60s, this is the 70s, this is the 80s, 90s, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a pure example of how albums were made back then and listening to them in a row. And you could easily pinpoint the transition of timelines with their music at that time frame. So again, Shades of Deep Purple released in 1968 to say The Battle Rages On in 93. I'm pretty sure there's got to be a huge transition of changes back then. And even from 93 till now, whoosh, again, bands like that, they don't really get the recognition as they deserve from what we're utilized now. And it's really sad because, it's really those hardcore guys that still follow the bands that, yeah, they'll get the recognition from them. But you're not going to be able to put on, MTV2 and see a video of Deep Purple from, Whoosh, because they'll focus on other crap out there. Okay. That is just, has no,
that's
no
YouTube
way.
for
Where YouTube, yeah, that's
I was
where
going to say that's
YouTube's
how I'm discovering most of my music these days, and some of these
True.
other bands, just because of the music videos. Or I'll follow certain record labels for that sign bands that I do like and find them that way. But yeah, if you're not, I can see for these long-standing bands outside like AC/DC, which they just put out new music not that long ago, and so that hit front page, but it's AC/DC. But even then, I should say the same. Deep Purple just put out an album. Had no idea.
Mm.
It's clearly not in the circle of the bubble of the internet that is feeding me music.
Right.
And
100%.
to your point, yeah, I'm not exposed, or I would need to be in the know with the band to be able to follow it and find it. Or yeah, it is curse of the internet bubble, and yeah, not having a platform with just music videos like MTV or whatever that is just a mixed bag of, hey, we've got all these artists and we're just going to play them all, and it's not necessarily all the same genre, but
it's all mixed.
We're just putting them out, and you can just get a buffet of music based on the videos and find them out that way. But yeah, to your point, yeah, I had no idea. I'd have to go looking for it. Easy to find now that you know, but yeah, if you'd have to be a hardcore follower of the band to an extent to find that, unless it's somehow related to your existing searches in YouTube, or comes up as recommended,
or you may get a notification that unless you follow them, they say, oh, hey, we're just releasing an album. But say if you weren't a band, if you weren't a fan of the bands, again, you wouldn't know unless you just happen to be listening to Smoke on the Water and go, oh, I wonder if they're still around. And oh, they just came out with an album last year. Because they're not commercialized with, what is popular today, which is, and I'll say it, and I don't care if this pisses people off, but unfortunately, country pop.
It's always
I'm gonna say country pop. It's not friggin' country. I don't care what people say. It's country pop. Country is Johnny Cash, the George Straits, not the Luke Bryan's. I bit my tongue on that one, but it's country pop. That's all it is. It's country pop. Hip hop is still keeping going strong. So I appreciate that. But you're not going to have the rock world is very, very low. Scary to see that. But anyways, that's a whole nother genre again. So that's my two bands is going to be him, his Infernal Majesty, and Deep Purple.
All right.
Awesome.
Song
of the week time.
Song of the week.
Song of the week.
All right.
I'm surprised we still haven't had a jingle for Song of the Week. Song of the Week.
We should write something.
Yeah.
Should write a little. Yeah, just a little jingle. Advertise Song of the Week segment. That'd be pretty good.
We'll use the Top Gun bell for it. Dun. Oh, you know what that means? It's the song of the week.
That's one
Nice.
thing we can say is the same bell, unlike the Taco Bell commercial, which it turns out is not the same bell, even
Not the
though if you
same.
don't hear them back to back, it does kind of sound like the same bell. Yes.
Similar.
Uh,
So you
yeah,
guys
Kayla,
just
do you
want
want
me
to start your spiel? Usually tee us up
Sure.
with the
Yeah.
do it up?
Yeah, I can do that. So, just a reminder, we have a Spotify Song of the Week playlist, and we put the link to that in the description of every episode. So, if you want to listen to any of the songs that we're going to talk about today in their entirety, or if you want to go back and listen to any of the songs we've talked about in previous episodes, you can do that by heading to our playlist, link in description. And with that, my pick for this week, it was kind of tough because I was back and forth between initially I was going to pick a song from the Tragically Hip, and then I was like, maybe I should go with the slightly lesser known band in this situation. So I decided to go with a song from Her Last Sight off of their 2021 album Mirrors. The song is called Memories, and this is actually one of my favorite songs off of their album so far. They've got a lot of songs I really like, but this one's, I don't know what it is about it. I just really like this song. It grabs you right from the get-go. It's got a lot of that great melodic guitar that I talked about. The chorus has some really cool vocal harmonies happening that the other songs on the album don't quite have, so that's pretty cool too. And one of the things that I think is really interesting, I'm pretty sure, but not positive, that there's harp in this song. It sounds like the outro has some harp, which is unusual for particularly a metal song. I don't think I've heard too many metal songs that have harp in them. Maybe not as unusual as the Who, the Mongolian band that Ted talked about and the instrumentation they have. But yeah, where I might expect, given the way he described them, that perhaps they would have harp. I would not expect to hear harp in the kind of music that Her Last Sight is putting out. Which is pretty cool. So, really great song. I would recommend checking out any of the songs on this album, but if you only have time to check out one at the moment, check out Memories, Her Last Sight off the 2021 Mirrors, and that is my pick for this week.
Nice.
So,
I like it.
Matt,
wants to take it?
Matt, what's your pick?
All right. So song of the week. I'm going to go with the band that I just referenced, which is Him. And the song is going to be Join Me in Death from the second album, Razor Blade Romance, released on November 2nd, 1999. What's unique about the song, and again, this is one of the first of many singles that I've heard besides Wings of a Butterfly that caught me off guard. And this type of song, when you're listening to it, it starts off with a soft piano intro and then the guitars just burst right into it. Again, something that was like, oh, am I looking at something that's like vampiric? A vampiric band? Like, but wait a minute, why am I hearing piano in the beginning? Something is a little bit off. So I'm going to look at this video.
Kidding.
Huh?
Twilight. Sorry.
I have no idea what the hell Twilight. Okay.
Twilight movie.
Twilight
vampire,
the movie with
Twilight
the
movie.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
piano.
Twilight, New Moon, Eclipse,
Yeah.
Breaking
Sorry.
Dawn, Part 1 and 2.
Oh, turns out he knows more about it than he was letting on 5 seconds ago.
It's only because my wife has the video, the videos, and have I ever watched them? God, no. I have. I only know of Robert Peterson because he's playing the new Batman. But, spoiler. But anyways, get back. Him referenced earlier is their lyrics is really focused on love. But when you're listening to Join Me in Death, I mean, so here's the thing, right? So Join Me in Death was actually released twice. And the reason why is because in Europe, they wouldn't allow In Death. So it came out as just Join Me. And then when it got popularity to the US, obviously the US accepted it. And that's why it was re-released as Join Me in Death, from what we're recognized. But if you were to be in Europe and you were to listen to, or look up the song, you're not going to find it. You'll just find Join Me, which could possibly maybe throw off, trying to search for that song went up, but it's because of the censorship that they have. But Billy's vocals, when you're listening to the song, I want to say it's like 85% of the song, he's all falsetto. in the song, but his lyrics have the most darkest tones that it pretty much, the song is basically like, hey, let's just die together. And with the guitars and the soft piano, it's got like, I want to say, if I were to picture this, almost like a song that's, it's similar to like, and I'm not saying it's projected like as if it was ending life because of obviously how the lyrics are, but it's also saying not alone, like let's do this together. So it's a little dark because it's got a little bit of that sacrificial element to it, but the song itself, as far as lyrics, are definitely very powerful. So that's gonna be my song of the week. It's gonna be "Join Me in Death" from the second album, Razor Blade Romance, released in November 2nd, 1999. I'm sorry, wow. November 2nd, 1999. Holy crap.
Anyway, I'm going to take
Ted,
over
what's
with
yours?
my song of the week. It is a song that I've already referenced at the beginning. It is an alien weaponry song, Kai Tangata, which is the really cool video that I had mentioned before. Has the tribe members doing traditional dance, and it's the video describes two different rival tribes, one with modern weaponry with rifles, and the others are using spears, and how out of sync that is, and the way, just culturally, it's very fascinating. The entire song is in Maori language, very powerful. Guitars are heavy. The song is a bit repetitive, but it has that traditional tribal kind of vibe to it. I would highly recommend watching the music video at the same time if you're listening to this for the first time, because it is visually stunning. Music video is awesome, very unique, very cool, and yeah, Kai Tangata is just. I've been listening to that probably once every other day or so for the past 3 weeks. It's just super catchy. It's not heavy, radio friendly because of I don't know. So it's not like deathcore crazy metal that I stick to. I think in terms of rock music, it's really catchy and neat, and it's cool because it's in a different language at the same time. So that's my pick for this week. Highly recommend that. And with
I wouldn't be surprised if that was a dish name.
Dish name?
Yeah, like, hey, can I order the
Kai Tingata? Can I have a
the
large
side of,
Kai? I don't even know what it
sliced
translates
lime?
to. I shouldn't even. It might be something completely inappropriate.
Yeah. Just sounds badass.
Yeah.
With a couple slices of lime on the side.
Sure. Yeah. Coming right up. So with that, that wraps up, I think, our episode for this week.
I think so.
And if any of you listeners or have any feedback or any international bands that you listen to that we haven't heard of, possibly, let us know who you're listening to from the international scene. And you can do that on any one of our social medias, Instagram, YouTube,
Facebook.
What's that? Facebook, that's right. So all those platforms, very responsive there. And you can also reach out to us via email at distortedopinionshow@gmail.com. And you can also leave us a voice message at anchor.fm/distortedopinions. See, I've listened to Kayla do this spiel for so long, I actually got it down. I don't even have notes. I'm just winging it. And with that, I think that covers all of our social media plugs.
I think so.
And I think we're good for the episode for today. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, we'll see you
next week.
See you guys.
See ya.